I think it's unlikely we're going to see another 9/11 in the near future. But I think it's very likely we're going to see a lot more San Bernardinos. And I think that comes inevitably from the kinds of refugee flows that we're seeing and the kind of recruitment that ISIS in particular has done so well. They are masters of communication over the social media. And the number of Americans and Europeans who have been recruited to go to ISIS territory, in Syria in particular, but potentially now in Libya and elsewhere, is very frightening. These are people who will not have a Syrian visa stamped on their passport because nobody's giving out visas in the territory ISIS controls. And so they're going to come back into this country or back into Europe with no indication that they did anything except take a 2-week vacation in Turkey. That threat, I think, is already apparent in Europe, and it's going to be more apparent here. And the refugee flows, which are continuing and which will accelerate over the summer as the sailing season across the Mediterranean from North Africa opens, are just going to make that threat worse. When Chancellor Merkel of Germany said last year that she was prepared to accept 800,000 Syrian refugees in Germany, she said that without consultation of any other European Union members. The Minister of Information of Lebanon, who is himself a Muslim, estimated that 2% of that refugee flow would be terrorists. So even my math gets me to 16,000 terrorists pretty quickly. 16,000! And by the way, the refugee flow has not stopped at 800,000. It's still going up. Once they're in Europe, it's a fairly easy plane ride to the United States. And it's also troubling, more troubling in Europe, I agree, but troubling here as well, that so many of the terrorists are homegrown. If you go back to the London transportation bombings of 2004, all of the terrorists in those attacks had been born and raised in Britain. Not that they're not subject to discrimination. I think they are. I think true there and in Europe. But here are people who grew up in a free country. They could see the benefits of freedom all around them. And they still chose radicalism. That, to me, is the most frightening of all. Because if it's true that the Europeans don't have the tradition of the melting pot we have in this country, if that ideology is so strong that it can resist the attractions of a free society, we are in real potential danger. So I'm afraid that the awareness of the threat is not what it should be because our national leaders are not talking about it. But this is not just my estimate. You know, in the past couple of months, the Director of National Intelligence, General James Clapper, who is an Obama administration appointee, hardly an alarmist. This is the same man who said a few years ago that the Muslim Brotherhood's basis was not really religious. It's an interesting thought. He testified in open session before the House and the Senate that the international terrorist threat today was greater than before 9/11. So that's the administration's own top intelligence official testifying to that effect. And you can bet that that means that it's at least as bad as he says it is. I'm worried we're going to have more terrorist attacks in this country. It's going to take that to wake us up again. Think now that 9/11 was only 15 years ago. 15 years ago. And we've already begun to treat it like it's ancient history. So it sometimes takes us in America that kind of shock to wake us up. I hope that's not going to be true again. But it's a world that's increasingly dangerous, where our defenses are down and where all kinds of technologies are now open to the terrorists that have never been open before. And yet we're having debates with the semi-sovereign country of Apple over whether we can de-encrypt to prevent terrorists from endangering our fellow citizens. So I think these are the kinds of issues that will will be prominent in the debate at the national level. I think this is something that's critical up and down the ballot, though, the security of the country. I happen to think it's critical going forward. I also happen to think it's good politics for us, because at this point there is no national security wing in the Democratic Party. There is no Scoop Jackson wing. There isn't even a Joe Lieberman wing anymore. You know, the debate is between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. Hillary, who doesn't have the wit to protect her own emails, as if we're supposed to believe she's going to protect the country. And Bernie Sanders, who is even more witless because he doesn't understand why Hillary's lack of concern over security shouldn't be an issue in their own Democratic primary. So if the Republican Party isn't the party of national security, then there isn't any party that's doing that at all. And as I say, why I think this coming November, it's so important for the future of the country, but also happily beneficial for us. Thank you very much.